Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I'm Dr. Pekhom Basu, visiting faculty at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. This module today discusses the Indian Constitution and the role of social work and social justice within the Constitution. The objective of this module is to understand the genesis of the Constitution. It is not just a written document, it is a living document. I will explain this subsequently. To understand the sanctity of the preamble, where all these words that I mentioned, secularism, justice, democracy, liberty, equality, are enshrined in, and to apply the tenets of secularism, democracy, justice, liberty, and equality in social work practice. To begin with, the Constitution is the basic text for social work profession. Reason being, most of the social work interventions are based on it, since the principles are similar to what is enshrined in the preamble of the Constitution. The Constitution of a country is in a sense adjectival rather than substantive, and it reflects on the history of the country and what the country aspires to be. And this you will also see in the context of secularism, which I'll come to later. The Constitution of India impacts the life of its citizen beyond the political and includes social and economic as well, which is why we have fundamental rights and we have directive principles enshrined again in the Constitution. And as social workers, we often use them in interventions. The Constitution has evolved with the times and it incorporates the changes or attempts to cushion the impact by incorporating the changes, which is why the Constitution of India has gone through innumerable amendments, even as recent as 2016, it has undergone the last amendment. Reason being, we are trying to keep up with the economic changes that is happening and incorporate those changes within the country and ensure economic rights for the people. To give an example of how a constitution works, it also reflects, the Constitution reflects on the history of the country and what the country aspires to be, as I mentioned earlier. For instance, the preamble of the Constitution of South Africa states, "We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustice of our past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, respect those who have worked to build and develop our country, and believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity." Thus, the preamble of the Constitution of South Africa acknowledges the apartheid history, honors the blacks who suffered from injustice, and ensures that in the future, the tortured history will not be repeated and the country will belong to all. Now, this is something which is even in neighboring Sri Lanka is happening. In fact, as I speak, Sri Lanka is one of those countries who is rewriting its constitution because it is trying to amend the devastation that the 30 years of political turmoil has caused. And the constitution should reflect the new Sri Lanka that Sri Lanka aspires to be. The Constitution accepts the principle of popular sovereignty, and which is why the government of India derives its power from the people. Social workers use these objectives from the preamble in their day-to-day interventions: justice, social, economic, political, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Now, coming back to the Constitution of India, the Constitution of India accepts the principle of popular sovereignty, and the government of India derives its power from the people, and that is because we elect our government. Social workers use the objectives from the preamble, for example, justice, social, economic, political. When we are dealing with gender discrimination, we are looking at social justice. When we read about farmer suicide, And when we try to intervene there, we are talking about economic justice, and political justice is everything that is happening around has a political coloring. And political because we also link up because personal is political. In terms of liberty, equality, and fraternity, we are constantly working in the field whenever we are intervening in a social problem. It is these that we are trying to address and restore the liberty of an individual, whether it is somebody suffering from caste oppression, or somebody who is facing gender discrimination, or even in terms of equality, when we are looking at disability, we are looking at equality. So the objectives from the preamble are something, if you reflect, something that we are constantly using, and across, be it in our casework, group work, or even in community organization. Now we will discuss secularism, one of the objectives enshrined in the preamble of the Constitution. Secularism is relevant today because we are in a situation of growing intolerance. And it is important to understand that just, for example, as I mentioned earlier, where Sri Lanka is trying to rewrite its history or its constitution, or for that matter, where neighboring Nepal rewrote their constitution, and from a Hindu kingdom, it became a secular country. Similarly, secularism is something which we have struggled with. It was not something which the founding fathers of the Constitution could agree with. Today, the Indian Constitution boasts of being one of the most explicitly secular constitutions in the world, but the founding fathers could not agree on the term, fearing that it would be seen as anti-religious, and it was included only in 1976. But given the fact that we have given birth to religion, to Jainism, to Buddhism, which have been referred to in the previous modules, and we have embraced Islam and Zoroastrianism within our folds, secularism is extremely important to ensure the religious liberty of the different faiths that have made India home since its long history. Secularism, even today, is not defined in the Constitution, but various articles in the Constitution ensure the tenet of secularism. There is Article 14, 15, 16, 19, 21, 25. And I will not elaborate on these articles because as a student of social work, you must read the Constitution. It is your Bible. You need to know the articles and you need to keep referring to them because only then you can deliver social justice in the field. Secularism is also something which has been threatened. In fact, in 1978, there was an attempt to remove the word secularism from the Constitution. And in this context, the 1994 Supreme Court judgment is very important. It stated, secularism is a part of the basic structure of the Constitution and Parliament has no powers to dilute it in any way. Concerted efforts would have been made by some political parties to amend the Constitution to dilute its secular tenets. So it is, and this has, it's 76 to today, the history has not changed much. And therefore, it is important to safeguard secularism even in practice. And as social workers, that is our responsibility. Secularism is the freedom of different of people from across faiths to practice their religion, and this can only survive in an environment of democracy, and therefore democracy is important again in the Constitution. And democracy cannot survive without liberty and equality since they are dependent on each other. Democracy is not just a form of government, but it concerns human rights and human dignity and implies rule of law, equality and liberty, and freedom from oppression, exploitation, and arbitrary interference. So there are certain basic elements of democracy. First is eligibility of citizens for role in government, and this means that anybody can aspire to be part of the political system, irrespective of caste, creed, education, gender. Um, Elections, we do have universal adult franchise, and every citizen is called upon to exercise his or her right to vote. The government is accountable, and therefore we do have right to information and public interest litigation. In terms of freedom, personal freedom, again, to exercise, to follow your own faith, to follow your own belief system, in terms of in freedom of speech and expression. In terms of political rights, we have local self-government, which is the first constituent where democracy is exercised by people. Then we have the rule of law, which is essentially access to justice, again, irrespective of caste, class, religion. Everybody has access to justice, and they can appeal to the higher courts if dissatisfied with any judgment. In a democracy, civilian supremacy is important because this means that the military is non-politicized and cannot assume power. Rationalism and pluralism, very important for a diverse country like India. We have state and political policies of secularism. Each state each state keeps in mind the language, the people, the culture that it contains within, and formulates policies accordingly. And we are a multiculturalism society, and we do have mutual tolerance. Non-violence is again something which we all adhere to, and stabilized democracy contributes towards economic growth, especially in a country like India. As I mentioned earlier, democracy cannot be seen in void. It has to be seen with the tenets of liberty and equality. Liberty, again, is enshrined in the Constitution. We have freedom of speech and expression. We have the right to assemble. We have the right to form associations or unions. There are times during political violence when some of them may be suspended, but it cannot be taken away from the citizen of the country. We have liberty to move freely throughout the territory of India. Every citizen has the liberty to reside and settle in any part of India, and liberty to practice any profession or to carry on any occupation. And this is especially, again, if you go back to the tenets of Hinduism, this particular liberty is important because it tries to overcome the discrimination that the caste system brought about. And therefore, to break away from that caste system, the liberty to practice any profession or to carry on any occupation is important. However, liberties are not absolute, since it also needs to protect the weak, and therefore we have, for example, tribal area protection to safeguard the tribal from being overrun by the non-tribal population in the country. From liberty, we move on to equality and justice. Right to equality is guaranteed in the Indian Constitution through Articles 14 to 18, and only when equality is guaranteed, social, economic, and political justice will be delivered. So, as a result, we can challenge gender discrimination, we can challenge caste discrimination. We also have protective measures whereby people can be penalized for violating the economic, social and political rights of individuals, especially those from the weaker communities. Social justice, though the next module delves deeper into social justice, also because it is ingrained to the practice of social work. But for the Constitution of India, social justice is equal social opportunities for the development of every citizen, irrespective of caste, gender, age, class, education, occupation, and religion. Social justice demands economic equality and rights to be ensured, and this essential, and as Dr. Ambedkar has mentioned, equal emphasis on the rights of individual citizens and the rights of protection of disadvantage so that a socio-political balance is achieved. So to recap what we have talked about in this so far, as a democracy, the will of the people is important to uphold what our Constitution dreamt of. Social worker here plays an important role in shaping this will in accordance to the ideas of the preamble and the dream of the Constitution. The Constitution delves into fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. Essentially, the objectives which are enshrined in the preamble are elaborated through fundamental rights and directive principles, and the underlying principles of social justice and social work are important to be aware of as a social worker. Social workers are approached when justice is denied or to help in access of rights or for certain services. Social worker works towards social justice through his or her everyday involvement in the lives of people. Social work profession has the prerogative when it comes to social justice. The reason is, and Malcolm Pine beautifully puts this, he says social work makes three main contributions to social justice. Social work uniquely sets out to improve relationships between people individually and collectively. It focuses on people who lose out because they need housing or financial support but don't fit the criteria. Social workers have always been prepared to intervene in social relations. Essentially, this means that every act of a social worker is a step towards social justice. For instance, in the Indian context, a home visit by a social worker implies that a social worker is defying caste, creed, class, and works for the well-being of the human being alone, with no bias or prejudice. Social justice is discussed across borders, even in the Western countries. In the American context, for example, the National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics explicitly states in its preamble that social workers promote social justice and social change with and on behalf of clients. Social workers' social change efforts are focused primarily on issues of poverty, unemployment, discrimination, and other forms of social injustice. And this resonates even with the Indian context, because even in India, we social workers are focusing primarily on these very issues. It's just that in terms of social injustice, if they are talking about racial injustice, we are talking about caste injustice. We are also talking about gender, we are also talking about poverty, unemployment. The Code of Ethics also states that social workers strive to ensure access to needed information, services, and resources, equality of opportunity, and meaningful participation in decision making for all people. This is again something that social workers in India are working at constantly, whether it is in rural social work or whether it is in the urban sphere, whether it is with individuals or groups or communities. We are ensuring access to information, we are ensuring access to services. We do not have a very strong set of social welfare services, but whatever we have, we ensure that every citizen has access to that. We are ensuring access to resources, whether it is monetary resources or environmental resources or whether even if it's resources in terms of education. Equality of opportunity, again, across disabilities, across gender, we work towards that, and we ensure that every citizen has a right to participate and is aware in every decision-making process that the country goes through. In India, the draft code of ethics for professional social workers state social justice refers to the concept of a society in which justice is achieved in every aspect of society rather than merely through the administration of law. It is generally considered as a social world which affords individuals and groups fair treatment, equality, and an impartial share of the benefits of membership of society. In the draft of the global definition of social work, it states a practice-based profession and an academic discipline that promotes social change and development, social cohesion, and the empowerment and liberation of people. Principles of social justice, human rights, collective responsibility, and respect for diversities are central to social work, underpinned by theories of social work, social sciences, humanities, and indigenous. Social work engages people and structures to address life challenges and enhance well-being. Hence, the Code of Ethics for professional social workers in India goes beyond the fundamental law of the land, that is the Constitution. Political freedom has no meaning for the millions of Indians suffering from social evils and poverty if socioeconomic freedom is not secured. Hence, the Constitution provides for economic and social justice through fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. The Constituent Assembly's objective resolution formed the basis of the preamble and of fundamental rights and directive principles. Power and authority derived from the people, justice, social, economic, and political, equality of status, of opportunity, and before the law, freedom of thought, expression, belief, faith, worship, vocation, association, and action, subject to law, and public morality shall be guaranteed and secured, which essentially means that every citizen in the country has the freedom to practice the religious faith, to worship the gods, to take up any vocation that he or she wants to, and in terms of unionization through association and action. However, it also, to safeguard the weak, it also states that it is subjected to law and public morality, which means that safeguards are provided for minorities, backward and tribal areas, and depressed and other backward classes. We have Articles 14 to 18, the foundation of social justice, directive principles, Articles 38, 39, 39A, 41, and 46 promotes equality. Now, equality here has two facets. One is social equality in law and equality in fact. The Code of Ethics enables social worker to uphold the equality and liberty that the Constitution declares. The ethical principles discussed in the Code of Ethics: 1. Human rights and human dignity, social justice, integrity and belongingness, sustainability, services, and human relations. Social workers have a responsibility to promote social justice in relation to society generally and in relation to the people with whom they work. Therefore, challenge negative discrimination, recognizing diversity, distributing resources equitably, challenging unjust policies and practices, and working in solidarity. The social and economic justice enshrined in the Constitution translates into welfare state. Directive principles are described as the manifesto of a welfare state, designed to guide the legislature, judiciary, and executive of the state. The directive principles lay down the policy for action for the state and the central government, but are not legally binding. To conclude, as we saw, the tenets of of secularism, democracy, equality, fraternity, and justice are enshrined in the preamble of the Constitution of India. And these, in turn, are elaborated in the fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. And they ensure that every citizen gets equal opportunity, every citizen is treated equally before law, and his or her freedom is not encroached upon by a more powerful citizen. As social workers, we are working in tandem with the Constitution of India, and we are safeguarding what the Constitution of India has stated. We are challenging discrimination, we are enabling equality and equity, and we are defending thus the Indian Constitution for every citizen in this country. To conclude this module on the Constitution of India and the role of social worker within this context, the preamble of the Constitution of India discusses justice, democracy, secularism, equality, fraternity. These objectives are further elaborated through the fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy, and they ensure that every citizen gets equal opportunity, every citizen is treated equally before law, and his or her freedom is not encroached upon by a more powerful citizen. The social worker's role in that sense is to safeguard the tenets of the Constitution. It challenges discrimination, it enables equality and equity, and it also defends the Indian Constitution to ensure that it does not fail in its mandate. In a sense, the Constitution, through its directive principles, discusses of attaining a welfare state, and it is this welfare that the social worker, through its intervention, attempts to deliver. And in cases where the Constitution fails to deliver or keep its promises of democracy, social justice, equality or fraternity, the social worker steps in to enable the Constitution to reach out to the last citizen in the country. Hope this has been useful. I will request the students to please read the Constitution. As I said earlier, it is the Bible for every social worker. It is important that we are aware of every article that is mentioned in the Constitution and accordingly strategize on our intervention in the field. Please go through the reading list. It is not complete, but it is adequate to give a broad understanding of the Constitution. Thank you.